In this video, what we're going to do is have a quick look at the mind of a marker and how they would go to to marking a particular question. So, here's the question. Describe the impact of the significant person or school of thought chosen in part A. So this is the second part of section 2. And it's the question on Christianity for this one because they're doing St. Paul. So they must have done something on St. Paul in part A. They're doing something on Paul in part B. So whatever they did in A was a little bit different to what they're doing in part B. I like the way that this student has written around the question. So although it's not necessarily worth any marks, it tells me as the marker that you've put some thought into it, which is good. Now we can see that there is actually a little bit of a plan here. Because it's only worth 4 marks, this person's got 4 words there, and that's enough for a plan. If they for some reason run out of time or don't get their 4 marks there and they've got something in here that I might be able to give them an extra mark for, I'm going to use that as evidence that they know their information. Okay, so what do they need to do? Well, they've circled the key directive term. They need to describe. So that's indicated the main features of the impact of the significant person. So in this case it's St. Paul. So they need to describe the impact of St. Paul, pretty much. Okay, so St. Paul would be the main content that they've got to look at, but the qualifying part of the question here, and it's good that this person has boxed it, impact. So the impact of St. Paul. So the impact is more than just their contribution, but their impact is something that is ongoing. So even after they've died, their contribution that they made while they were alive still continues on. That's what an impact of someone has. If someone has no impact on you, then you're not going to change the way that you behave. Whereas if someone has an impact on you, then you might modify your behaviour to some extent. So, in this case, what I'd be looking for in this response is that the student talks about the impact of St. Paul, but they would have had to describe some of the features that led to this impact and how we can still see this impact today. Alright, so they're the things that I'm going to be looking for. The impact of St. Paul is glaringly evident. Alright, they're starting to make a judgment when it's not necessarily required, so they can't get any extra marks for it because it's only a 4 marker, but it's not a bad habit to get into. As his epistles, nice word for his letters, are still used, alright, good, still used, as a source of guidance for Christian communities. Okay, so that's straight away is telling me that they know impact. And all they've done is said still used. So they're saying it's still being used today. Not only was it relevant then, but it's still being used today. That's good. So already I'm giving them a mark for that. As he heeded Jesus' final directive to go and make disciples of all nations, so he's talking about something that happened at the origin of it, given a quote for it, and referenced it, so at least 2, possibly 3 marks already. Paul established churches. Okay, so it's starting to talk about what he did. Established churches in places such as Rome, Corinth and Galatia. So he gave concrete examples of where they established churches. If it was just left at Paul established churches, then it's not as complete an information that it could be. Still might be able to get 4 marks, but not as likely to get 4 marks as if you give a concrete example as well. So charismatic and influential was his evangelization, so talking about what he was like when he was on earth, about the salvation received through Christ, going back to a core belief, that the way, alright, nice term for the Christian movement, spread exponentially in the Roman Empire. So so they really know their history here, spread exponentially. So starting to say how evangelical it was and how many people it impacted on. From this era, Paul's teaching in theology, again more contributions of Paul, has been utilised, so it has been in the past, as a way of right living for individuals to treat themselves, each other and their God. That's a very good response. So if we go through it again, they've talked about, answered the statement in the very first sentence. Still used today as a source of Christian communities, showing the impact, showing that qualifier. As he heeded Jesus' final directive to go and make disciples of all nations, a reference to scripture is really good. If you can do that even in these short ones and have it referenced, then that looks really good for it. The marker is going to think this person's smart. Paul established churches in such as, alright, and gave concrete examples of it. So charismatic and influential was his evangelization, so how he went about his work, links it to a core belief, shows the background knowledge about the way and the Roman Empire. From this era, so not just then, but in through his impact, so showing his impact, Paul's teaching in theology, okay, didn't need to could have given some examples, but didn't need to, has been utilised as a way, so it can still be used of individuals to treat themselves, each other, and their God. So that's easily a 4, and well done to this person with their impact there.